partnerships with the World Bank. And then I hope we still have Martin Mbaye here. I'm very keen that Martin joins the conversation. Martin is a fellow of Gaia with our first cohort, and now postdoctoral fellow at Strathmore University. So if Martin is still with us, I hope he can actually join the panel. So you all have worked with the governing or governance of AI and tech-based tools. Regulation is, of course, only one aspect of one important tool of this. We also need to look at partnerships and so forth. But let's start up with regulation. We have seen quite a lot across the world, most in Europe, I think. But in most or in many countries, we've seen elements of regulation in regulating issues such as privacy and so forth. Kilian, maybe you want to start us out with just a few comments of what have the learnings been? I mean, is there sort of an overriding trend here and a learning from our sort of initial experience in managing some of these issues through regulation? You're muted, Kilian, or we can't hear you. There's still a problem with the sound. Do you want to manage it while we shift over to João, perhaps? Are you okay to start us out, João, with the sort of global perspective of the World Bank?
Okay, thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here. Well, that's a very big and broad question. Sorry. So let me say, and I don't need to convince the audience here, that when you start discussing AI issues, it's not really about technology. It's beyond the bits and bytes discussion. It's beyond the technical discussion. In the end, if you focus, really, it's about people. It's about setting the processes. It's about the culture that you have underway, and this can be applied on different environments, on different countries that you are working with. So you have different contexts, and for sure you don't have a one-size-fits-all approach. And you can find in different geographies, in the global north, in the global south, in countries that are in the different stage of the digital journey, you can find different challenges. Namely, for regulators, you can find issues of lack of leadership, awareness, questions of inadequate policies, even issues of insufficient data and digital infrastructure, so issues of the lack of digital talent. So it's just to say, it's all over, and you can find it really in different geographies. What is certain from our experience, and as we approach our different partner countries and the countries that we also support on the digital transformation, is that you need, if you want to navigate this transformation underway, namely with the emergence of AI, you need to partner with your ecosystem of stakeholders. Meaning, you cannot manage the digital transition considering only governments, or putting on the decision table only government. So you need to bring on board the academia, the civil society, the private sector, and again, I'm preaching here, I believe, to the converters, and you can see that different countries, namely developed countries, but also some countries that are starting their digital journey, they are doing that. They are bringing on board, they are giving space for this ecosystem to participate, whether through steering committees, whether having open participation before starting regulating a specific topic. So I would say in a nutshell, and just to start the discussion, that is, you need to have this mindset of bringing the ecosystem of stakeholders on board. Otherwise, your capacity to navigate this transition would be quite limited, I would say. Over to you.
Thank you very much, and Kilian. That this is perhaps a perfect cue if the sound is working. And thank you, by the way, for joining us. I know you've had a very busy day with European legislation in a trilogue. So your comments sort of on this, and perhaps also touching on the industry collaborations and those partnerships. And as I know that Europe is also trying to drive an innovation agenda. How do we match or manage the relation between legislation and innovation?
So thanks, Soren. I hope now you can hear me. If you can show me that with your finger, that is okay, perfect. So it's a great pleasure to be here with you again, and it's very interesting to participate in this conference. How do we manage the balance between innovation and regulation? How we work with industry is, of course, a crucial thing, because just as for your background, I'm responsible in the EU Commission for the AI Act, which should be hopefully then soon the worldwide first comprehensive legislation on artificial intelligence, which should create a framework for the use of trustworthy AI in Europe. And there we have, of course, in everyday's discussion, we have this problem of how much do we want to add in protection, which comes often with a certain burden, and how much do we need to leave room for innovation, particularly for new elements like now the large foundation models, the large language models, which we see all over the place. We think in the end, if we get it right, we can find a fruitful balance where both can happen, innovation and use, because we are not regulating against the technology. We want to promote the technology, but we want to set guardrails. We want to have it happen in a certain stable frame, because we believe that a technology which really runs into risks sooner or later will be discriminated, because you could see this with other technologies which never really broke through because there were too many risks. We had in Europe this unfortunate example, for instance, of the Dutch government, which had to step back because there was a scandal on AI, because social welfare systems were paid out incorrectly, and that led to so many social problems that the government in the end had to withdraw. If you have this kind of event, of course, you will not have an uptake of this technology. We think it goes together, but it must, of course, a little bit be balanced. What is very interesting on this technology is, of course, that it's very fast moving, and that the industry is normally at the forefront of these movements. So as a regulator, you need as well to have this input from industry. So you need to know what is really coming next. As a famous CEO once said, what's the next big thing? So you need to know what's happening. And we try there in that respect to work very closely with industry by setting a framework which then be filled out with, in particular, with industrial standards. And this standardization process is a process where we have a kind of a co-legislation between the regulator and the industry, because the industry brings in the standards, they develop the standards, but we recognize them as being sufficient for our needs. And that allows us to go along with state of the art. So we can fix in the law basically that I simplify a bit, but certain features of the AI which are safety relevant must be state of the art. What state of the art is will be filled out by these standards, which will move ahead as industry goes. So there you can see perhaps how the interplay could work, how we have organized it.
Thank you very much, Kilian. Juliana, may I ask you to add comments as this agenda looks from a very large BRICS country? You have experience with regulation and working on this agenda.
Yes, thank you again, Soren, for this invitation. It's great to be here with you all, João, Kilian, Matthias, Martin, and also the others that I can see here, including my friend Vinicius. Yes, when we talk about the development of a new legislation or about the engagement of industry, we must ask here in Brazil who is taking care of the design of the proposed laws or regulation. Here in Brazil, this debate or the debate of any law is always difficult when you have different interests on the table. And as you point out, sometimes the legislators are not equipped or have the sufficient tools and knowledge to regulate high complex issues related to technology and artificial intelligence. Sometimes it's better to have no regulation than a bad regulation. And that's why in Brazil, during the public hearings and during the debates, you find room to listen the ideas from the specialists, including representatives from the industry. It means that the public debate is not only focusing on the views from the government, but we have pressures that involves the political scenario, and I don't think we have enough space today to go deeper on it. Thinking about rooms for partnerships with industry and governance, I can share that these kind of partnerships were especially good during the pandemic. In the time I was heading the Secretary for Consumer Affairs at the Ministry of Justice, and we did a great job with co-regulation, auto-regulation, responsive regulation, taking care of issues related to artificial intelligence, but also connect with consumer data problems, especially in the financial sector and with bank products. And in Brazil, we have, of course, different bodies from the government that are involved in this debate. And I think that we must go further on those issues globally, but there is still a strong gap inside, especially I can say about our country. We have not only regional inequalities, but a huge and diverse, as a huge and diverse country, have strong gaps here. And now the good thing is that we have also these debates increasing inside the Senate and the Supreme Court in Brazil, which I think it's good to open and to enhance the arguments and the designs of the solutions, and also to give more light for this discussion. I will stop here to listen to the others, but I think it's a great discussion to go ahead globally.
Thank you very much, Juliana. And I think maybe your final remarks there would be a good comment for you to start up. Also, Martin, from Kenya. We and full disclosure, Martin and I talked about this at a longer meeting this morning. The sort of the risk for the growing global divide. And the importance of sort of equal access to some of these tools and to different parts of the world. How does that look from Nairobi?
Yeah, thank you, Soren. You and I are currently seated in Nairobi. Hopefully my connection is clear and my sound is clear.
Perfect.
Excellent. You and I are seated in Nairobi, and throughout this call, the connection has been great. And for all intents and purposes, we could be in the global north. About 10 minutes away from where you are seated, I'm currently in my home office, is one of the largest slums